This is going to be such a weird video. Wait a minute. Did multiple generations of like us as kids create a childhood egregore? Oh my gosh, that is way too high. This is going to be like the only way you could see me. I'm not going to do the video like this. Hold on, I got to change the angle. But please stay tuned to the end of the video because we're going to be changing some things on this channel, starting with the next video upload. That's going to be coming out on Friday instead of a Saturday. This is going to be such a weird video. So I hope you're strapped in, and I really hope that you like weird. I don't know why did I do that? Why did I do that? So I'm pretty sure that as a collective, we all may have, well, almost all of us may have had the same exact experience. While I was thinking about this and talking about this with someone who had the same experience, and I was like, wait a minute, did multiple generations of like us as kids create a childhood egregore? Or maybe egregores? We're going to talk about a few things and experiences. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to really think about it. Maybe it's something that like you don't really have to like dig around in your brain for, or maybe this might unlock a memory that you totally even forgot that you had. Okay, when you were a child, whenever you were in a vehicle, did you ever sense or physically see in your imagination something running alongside the vehicle with you? And did this thing that you see or saw do like crazy parkour moves over lampposts or buildings or street signs? And when the car stopped and or when you reached your destination, did it just fade away and it was gone? I definitely did. Now, I wasn't in a car like too often because my mother couldn't drive, but if I was ever in a family member's car or a friend's parents driving us somewhere on a bus or anything like that, any vehicle that I was in that was moving, I had this experience. And I never told anyone anything about it. It was just something that always happened in my kid brain. Most people never told anyone anything about this. And yet, most of us all had it. Everyone's is always like a little bit different, but we all know what like someone was talking about. And we all thought that we were alone in seeing it. I inhaled cat fur, I'm so sorry. But we all thought we were alone in seeing this or imagining this. And like, obviously, something like this would be, if it was considered anything, a newer type of folklore type of thing. I don't even know where to put quotations in with it, that if you would even categorize it as something like this. For this and the other like childhood phenomenons that we're going to talk about today. But like it could be in a way, by stretching it, considered like newer folklore because you had to be in a moving vehicle to experience this. And we only have certain generations where there was like faster paced moving vehicles. And then another half of it is coming out after or around, but a lot of cases actually before Sonic the Hedgehog, because he seemed to be like the main one that people saw, like, you know, like running alongside the car. Like everyone forgets about Knuckles. They only remember Sonic. But this is like such a weird like bit of folklore. It was suggested because, you know, children, your minds need more stimulation. And our minds were more active with like video games and like cartoons. That the Brader Minhoff, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the Brader-Minhoff phenomenon, I mention it, I normally call it the yellow car theory. In other words, think of a yellow car, see a yellow car. It's like sometimes what people get confused, like looking for signs about in like spiritualism and witchcraft. But this phenomenon could also be at play. But that can definitely be at play here, obviously, besides our very active imaginations as children. But what I find interesting is that some people who talked about this experience, some of them had very, very strict parents. Some were homeschooled, and they couldn't even watch cartoons, let alone play video games. So some of them didn't know like who Sonic was at the time, or certain action figures, or anything else like that. And they wouldn't know like they would be Speedy, but they would also have the same experience with either a man or a dog or like a figure running alongside the car. So these other people who were, watching cartoons, playing video games, seeing images of, cartoon members from other people at school, and their brains could fill in the rest, for these other kids that were homeschooled and not allowed to interact with any of that, they had the same exact experience without knowing that these characters were meant for speed, but they would see something like a dog or a man running alongside the car. So that part still always throws me off just a little bit, because I was like, okay, subconscious, the characters that you're imagining, or the whatever you're imagining running alongside the car, is supposed to be fast. They do all these crazy things. If you were never around that, and your mind still does it automatically, that's what makes it interesting and weird to me. Hopefully that makes sense. But another thing to make it even more weirder, because don't forget, this is just talking about weird things right here. I'm not saying none of this is true or accurate. It's just so weird and cool to think about. Is some of these people experience this before Dragon Ball Z came out. In the 70s they were experiencing this, and even before Sonic the Hedgehog came out. So before these type of cartoons with the speed and the running and all that stuff, where they're just kind of oh my gosh, thank God it's hair wash day anyway. But they were having these experiences before these type of cartoons were coming out.
And I think that is so cool.
But again, as a disclaimer, as a reminder, I say in about a 9 out of 10 videos, so you guys could probably recite this part along with me. Magical advice is not medical advice. So I'm not saying the magic can overpass or bypass any psychological explanations. So I don't know. I think that part is insanely fun to think about. What if this had started with a few kids, as a game, and then they told some friends, and then they told some friends, and then they all believed in it really hard. So it just eventually turned into a childhood egregore. How many of us have had this experience? There's some more that I'm going to mention throughout it, but if you've had this experience so far, leave a car emoji in the comments, please. I swear you're not alone, okay? Like I said, I've experienced this too. But please, if you've experienced this one, please leave a car emoji before we get to the other ones. Because, it's just so wild to think about how many people have experienced the same exact thing. And it was your little, childhood brain secret. But yet so many people were doing the same exact thing. Again, these are just really fun, weird things that I was thinking about. You guys seem to kind of like my brain dump sessions when I'm thinking about weird things. Yeah, I'm not saying these are true. I'm not saying these are accurate. These are just whoa, magical, what if? You know what I mean? That was so cringe. I can't believe I just did that. Okay, so these next two that we're going to talk about aren't technically just from childhood. Just from childhood. I'm so sorry. Because even as adults, we experience this, or sometimes they don't have the experience when they're children. Sometimes they just experience as an adolescent or as an adult. But it seems there are more childhood cases for this one than adult ones. So that's why I'm lumping it in here. So hopefully this topic doesn't upset anybody or trigger anybody if you've had any really bad experiences with it. But the Hat Man. Now, most people see that the Hat Man as a sleep paralysis demon. That's what they think of him as. Others just say that he's just a shadow figure. More say that, he could be from a parallel universe. I've even heard some people say that he's the Sandman or he's the Dream Man. He's trying to put you back to sleep. Just some of the magical, spiritual reasonings besides your brain automatically are pattern seeking and want to seek out a face, therefore in the dark pareidolia takes over and you instantly make faces in the dark. Besides those types of reasoning, these are the magical spiritual reasonings people have behind the Hat Man. There's endless theories with him, but anyway, regardless, have any of you guys ever heard of the Hat Man Project? It's a website that someone had made after multiple sightings of the Hat Man. It's a place where people can submit their stories. You'll see stories from all over. I'm not sure how active it is now, because when I discovered it, it was quite a few years back. It was at least a decade back. So I don't know how active it is now. But if the link is still up, I'll put the link for the website of it in the description. But I just remember a few years ago going through all these stories and reading them, and seeing them of all ages, but it seemed that children were the most susceptible, Most common to have this experience, even though there are still a lot of adults. And it started in childhood and then it continued throughout their adult years. As we know, obviously he's seen it like all ages is just like a higher percentage of children. Obviously, again, there's the fact that it could be a psychological phenomenon. With our brains in that state, waking up, I've gone over hypnagogic and hypnagogic hallucinations and whatnot, pareidolia, your brain, human brains are pattern seeking, yada, yada, yada. Then there's also, like the spiritual side for like a fun thought of it. Since we're in this liminal space of waking up and being asleep across multiple different like beliefs and cultures, etc., liminal space is the connection to the spiritual realm, the astral realm, the parallel universe, etc. Slightly different for different types of beliefs and stuff. I kind of go over like the liminal spaces beginnings in a little bit more detail in like my old earth magic, ley line, fairy, and ghost videos. And I'll link that up here. That one's not like fun thought. That's like going over certain historical things with ley lines and ghost stories and stuff. Because this one, again, is just like fun talk. I would definitely check out that video if you want to see like the history and the folklore of it with the supernatural occurrences. But again, remember, these are fun thoughts. But what if this is its own egregore? Someone one night, a very, very long time ago, galaxy far, far, far away, woke up one night with sleep paralysis. Saw something piled up on a chair or in the corner of the room. Or if they had like a fire or a candle lit somewhere and it was casting shadows somewhere. And through pareidolia, thought they saw a person. Got freaked out and then told other people. Then it gets into other people's minds and other people's subconscious. Other people started seeing it more and more because of that. I don't know why I'm holding my Duncan like it's on display. Sorry about that. But because of that, it got passed on to like more and more people. So then again, lodge in the subconscious, your brain is going to make patterns. People are seeing this, again, either through knowledge and someone else mentioning it, so it's in their subconscious that they might see a shadow when they're sleeping, or them just seeing shadows and thinking it's a person. And then more people started thinking about it and giving it fear, giving it energy and thought. And then, boom! The Hat Man became its own egregore. And then imagine if, like, in order to feed his thought process, he had to show himself to other people to get him to think about it in order to feed it, because he was fed by thoughts and that was, like, his food. Again, these just sound kind of dark now, but, like, again, just weird, silly thoughts that I have alone and I don't have anyone to discuss them to. I'm not saying these are facts and absolute truths and what I absolutely believe. I just think that this is so fun to think about and it's interesting to think about. And also, if you have seen the Hat Man, if you feel comfortable letting other people know about it, you can leave a hat emoji down in the comments, because again, these seem to be such common experiences for so many people. It's so secret yet so common at the same time. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Again, these are just fun, spooky thoughts that, I was having. I am not saying that this is real. It's a perfect rainy night right now for like spooky thoughts. And I was gonna not do this video, but I decided to because I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so much weird and fun, interesting stuff. And it's gonna come out right before like spooky season begins. And I don't know, maybe you guys are gonna think I'm weird for this video, but again, I just think it's so cool that there were so many collective experiences that sometimes like no one talks about, but yet we all had. And when I was talking to my friends about this and we all found out we had the same experience, they were just like, oh, weird. And I'm just like, what do you mean just weird? Did you not think about this? But what if this? And I'm trying to like get the conversation to go like further, but like I said, a lot of them are not into like the same stuff that like I am. When I'm talking about that, they're like, what's that one again? What's this one? Is that like the lab created ghost thing? Like, they tried. They definitely tried. But like, since I'm like super into it, they're just kind of like, oh, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, sports. And I'm just like, nothing against sports, but I was like, oh man, I wanted to go on this topic a little bit more. So it's like the folklore and paranormal video where I'm talking about other things. I know, we got to talk about the last one and then all the changes for the channel. Thank you so far for having like this spooky, weird conversation with me. Getting weird. So anyway, before we get into the last one, because this is my mood right now, thinking about all these things, because it like kicks off so many things in my head and gets all of these like different ideas going. when I get these ideas, I want to have like a potty. I know that sounds so weird, but I want to have like a potty, like specifically like a tea potty in like a beautiful graveyard, and we dress all fancy and we talk about occult techniques and like occult experiences and folklore. Or maybe just like grab a coffee and like walk around a park or a library and like talk about all the weird stuff with the Knights Templar. So much of that stuff was weird. That's like what this conversation is like right now for me. Because I'm that type of friend that is fun for me. I hope you guys kind of know that vibe or have felt that vibe, because like that's my vibe currently, and that is my vibe a lot. I'm that type of friend. You could ask my friends. I'm going to call you up and be like, hey, you want to go stare at moss and old stone walls in the forest and then try and picture what life was like there at the time that the moss started to grow? And then we could leave some offerings to the land. Like I'm that type of friend. And then afterwards, maybe we could grab a milkshake. I think that's so fun. I don't care if anyone else doesn't think it's fun. I think it's fun. I think that is the best time of my life, because happiness is personal and it is nobody else's business what makes you happy. And that is my happiness. I am so off topic. I am so sorry. All right, let's get to the last thing before we get into the channel changes. So I'm going to talk about one more thing, even though there was a lot more I want to talk about. So maybe I could do a part 2 eventually. But this one, I feel like a lot of us maybe noticed this as a child, but it also seemed to have continued into our adult years. And that is the weird thing with streetlights. I feel like I don't even have to say anything more after that. I feel like most of you who've had experienced it know exactly what I mean. But for those of you who haven't, it's called the streetlight phenomena. My accent, it always sounds like I'm going, phenomena. I should not have had so much caffeine before this. I am so sorry. But rain makes me feel all energized too. I love it when it's storming. I feel powerful and electric. But anyway, that's like whenever that you would walk underneath like a street light, got close to it or looked at it for some cases, the street light would either dim or just completely turn off. I feel like there's like a big chunk of us who have experienced this, and who also maybe had like that one friend that would like brag about how they could turn off all the street lights at will, and then they would like try and prove it. I wasn't that friend. I was always the one that was like, prove it, show it to me. But you know what that also reminds me of? It's not like really related to this, but like the change in traffic lights. You know, when you would try to change the traffic light as a kid, or the other half of it when you would watch the other traffic light, so you would know when your traffic light would change, and then you would do like some magical hands, and you would be like, green, and you would time it perfectly so the light would turn green, and then you would just be like, I am magic. I am powerful. I control street lights. Like as a kid, I feel like we all kind of done that. Not related to this, but it just made me think of that. Anyway, street light interference. So they actually tried testing this, since like so many people who had this phenomenon, you know, happen, and then all of these people who claimed they could do this, and they're called sliders. They're referred to as sliders. People who can control or manipulate energy in the streetlight sense. There's way more that goes into actual like weird studies being done, which we can talk about. That's more of like a paranormal stuff, but we can talk about that in another video with actual tests and hypotheses and theories and all these things put out. So that one would be actually, as weird as this sounds, more factual than this. But again, if you guys were interested in that, the electric phenomenon, that could be a different video. But they were called sliders. They also call it a high voltage syndrome. High voltage syndrome. All I hear is Agnes's voice screaming high voltage in my head when I'm trying to say it. You know, AC/DC, dirty deeds, never mind. But anyway, sliders, high voltage syndrome, that kind of gets like lumped in with some other pretty cool and weird stuff. Like I said, we could talk about that at another time. So maybe some of those terms ring the bell, because they actually have done a lot of weird scientific tests and studies, and there have been a lot of documented cases with this. And I have them all written down because I studied them for a long time. Well, not like a long time, but a decent amount of time. When it came to streetlight interference and working with the sliders, they couldn't produce the same results as them just normally walking alone by themselves on a street. So for the experiments, they would have them walking alone on a street, and the streetlights would never go off, or they would never go off on command either. But again, there may have been a cause for this. Most common cause believed is because all the lights that this seemed to have happened with were the sodium vapor? Sodium vapor? I'm going to double check myself, but I'm pretty sure, double check me too. I'm pretty sure it was the sodium vapor lights. I'm pretty sure that's what they're referred to as. So most of these are like low pressure, I believe, but they also have high pressure ones too. But the low pressure ones are more vulnerable to like voltage dips, which will again then make the light, after all that pressure has built up and then drop, the light go on and then off. It's almost like, you know, the flashlight for when you see during paranormal investigations. I think I talked about it in when I was showing like my paranormal equipment, how like I will bring the flashlight for investigations. However, I will not trust it as just like, it is this, unless it does something absolutely miraculous with it, which you won't ever know unless you keep trying it. But like, I take it with like the smallest grain of salt. But again, because you have to use a certain type of mag light flashlight in order to do it with it in between on and off. But again, the heat and the pressure turns those flashlights on and off, and the same thing would happen with these certain types of streetlight. But both low pressure and high pressure sodium vapor lights, again, I'm hoping that's the right term, when they're going through their end of life, like when they're dying or malfunctioning, they'll cycle through of going on and then off again, on and then off again until they eventually die or malfunction. The high pressure ones will basically like turn off when they overheat and more like basically dim and then turn back on once again, after they've cooled off. While like the low pressure ones will kind of stay like more steady, but then just be like, boop, go off. Maybe I should have my dad come and explain this because he's an electrician. He could probably explain it better than I can. I know that's not like a super magical explanation and kind of like a letdown, but that's like the biggest guess when it comes to like what happens with the streetlight phenomenon, which I love though, because either way, no matter what way you look at it, there is no exact definite answer for the reason as to why it happened. It could be a mixture of this, it could be a mixture of that, it could be a mixture of this. Or again, groups of people putting thought and energy and intention into a power or an event that they think can happen. I don't know, I just think it's really cool. I like the magical, like, well, what ifs? Again, they are fun and weird and interesting to think about. And it kind of puts you down like a little bit more of an occult rabbit hole, because then it sounds like I'm trying to lead you into like having nothing but magical thinking, and I'm not trying to do that. It kind of like spurs your interest in other like occult magical things, and then you could discover new things that way. Again, I'm not saying you have to believe them. I just think a lot of the phenomenon and things out there that happen are just so interesting, and they're just so much fun to talk about, especially with other people, because then you get to see other people's perspectives and other people's train of thought. You can leave the door open for the scientifical, which again, some things are kind of hard to put the scientific method to, because that relates to more material things, and metaphysics isn't something that is really material, but then people will cling to like pseudosciences because of that. I think I went over it in my EDO motor effect in the history of divination video, and try and use that as like an answer. But I think it's also very, very, I don't know the word for it. I think it's good to say that we don't know when we don't know something. Could be science, could be something else, could be whatever. I don't know. Could be a little bit of this, it could be a little bit of that. It could be a little bit of science and psychological. Maybe it could be a little bit of something that we don't know about yet. Or it could be all this and none of this. We don't know. Nothing is actually in concrete evidence for what it is, because there's so many variables. It could be a mixture of this row and nothing of this row, or it could be a little bit of everything. And again, I do want to hit the fact home that just because, again, the majority of you that watch my channel knows that I'm a practicing witch and a paranormal investigator, but I think it's also very important, even though it probably won't seem like it with me in this video talking about all this weird stuff, that we can't dismiss other options just because we believe in magic and just because we believe in witchcraft. There's a little bit of everything in everything. There's a little bit of magic in everyday life. There's a little bit of science in everyday life. There's a little bit of psychology in everyday life. You know what I mean? I don't know if this is making sense. I think I'm like derailing right now. But anyway, if this has happened to you, can you leave a light emoji? Again, if you had the thing follow you alongside the car, like if you imagined or pictured something running along the car with you, please leave a car emoji, because I swear you are not alone. I have had this experience. If you've ever had an experience with like the Hat Man or some just see like the regular shadow figure, please leave a hat emoji. And then if you've ever had like the streetlight interference or like the streetlight phenomenon, please leave like a light emoji, like some type of light. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's so cool. I don't think I've had any Hat Man experiences. Like I went over my nightmare house and all that stuff. But I don't think I've had any like Hat Man experiences. A lot of my friends have, but I personally haven't, or I can't remember it. But I've also definitely had the streetlight experience one. Okay, let's talk about channel updates super quick. So during the month of October, I do have a lot of personal events planned, and I want to take you guys all on them with me. However, with how long it takes me to like edit a video, and sometimes it takes days for it to upload, and I've fallen behind on my comments, I've fallen behind on my mentions and on my tags, all that stuff, and then I'll be even more behind since editing is basically like all my free time. And I want to be able to respond to you guys timely. I'm going to make more work for myself. So starting in October, so the next video after this one, I normally upload at 8 a.m. Eastern time on Saturdays. That way it kind of uploads either like different times in different places. For October, since I won't be able to take you guys to do the spooky things with me, I already did plan out a bunch of different spooky things, but there's only 4 Saturdays in October and I had planned 5 videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload every Friday in October and not Saturdays. I'm still not sure of the time yet. Once I know, I'll like make a post on it. If it's like I don't think it's like a big deal. That makes me feel like, you guys must be worrying when like, calm down, Crystal. That sounds so... But again, because all the videos are kind of themed for October and spooky month. So the first one isn't like anything crazy, but I want them to progressively get crazy. I sound so weird, huh? So basically, the first video, since last year I never showed you guys how I decorate for Halloween, I turned my whole entire living space to basically like a walk-through Halloween party haunted house the whole entire time. So that's what I normally do. I don't know how crazy I'm going to do this year, but like, you know, moving things and lights and everything is themed, and it's basically everywhere just minus my bedroom. Where you walk is Halloween and stuff that you have to like walk through to get everywhere, which probably sounds annoying to some people, but like I love it so much and it's my home. So I can do what I want. So I don't know how crazy, so it might not be anything like super extravagant this year. Last year it was. And I think you only just saw like clips of it in my living room through certain videos. But the first video is going to start off with that. Then I want to get into some really peculiar, supernatural, weird occurrences in spiritualism. You know, with the mediums and the seances. Obviously, you know, there was a lot of hoax and fakery, but there was some really obscure, lesser known and talked about events that happened during that time, which I don't really see like a lot of people talk about, and I think it's so interesting. You know, like during certain seances. And like I said, I found out recently that I'm related to a very well-known spiritualist who built a seance tower and has like public brochures on how to host your own seance. So like I think that's a really fun video, and I was very excited for that one. Then the other video is I want to either conduct a seance if any of my friends are down for it, or do a spirit board session if any of my friends are down for it. I got to see which one's which. If no one's down for either, I could technically do the spirit board by myself. I could also use it with the pendulum option, you know, or I could set up some of my paranormal equipment while I do like a spirit summoning, and then we could see together if anything happens. But we have to see which friends are down for what and what they're cool with. It's easier with like a group of people. Then I want to do more campfire stories. Now I have even more weirder questions and some very weirder stories, but about around like a big bonfire like I did last year. And then my favorite one that's going to come out on Halloween is I want to do a nostalgic sleepover style video, which is going to sound so weird. But most sleepovers when you were a kid, well, at least like if you watch TV around like the 90s and stuff, I don't have that much experience with it, but you'd have the sleepovers and you would do, I don't want to give too many examples because I'm just going to give the most popular ones, but I'm going to want to do other ones that most people never heard of. But light as a feather, stiff as a board, Bloody Mary, things like that, where like everyone would come together and just basically do like witchcraft in the middle of the night because they couldn't sleep because they were hopped up on soda and potato chips. I want to do a video revisiting that now as like an established witch, and I think it would be fun vibes to have that style video on Halloween night. Like I said, there's going to be like a lot of older stuff that's in there, that like I don't want to give on here. I have like a giant list that I've been like researching all these things and like asking around my friends for the different things that they used to do during sleepovers. Cause like, okay, test this out. How many people do I need for this? All right, let me see who's available. I'll get us all matching witchy PJs. I don't even care. Just like, and like a bowl full of popcorn. We'll make a blanket fort. We'll set up fun, cozy lights. We'll eat Halloween cookies, and we're gonna try out sleepover witchcraft and see what happens. But then after that, there would be no video the next day on that Saturday, and then I'm gonna go back to uploading every Saturday. So the next video after that would be coming out November 8th of 2025. Because right after Halloween starts my busy season at work again, where I work the 6 days a week with the very long hours. So hopefully I can continue back on my Saturday schedule, but if I need a break, I'll let you know. If I'll be taking a break and giving like a heads up, which I might need a break. The only thing is like sometimes when you stop posting on YouTube, when you start posting again, it doesn't like show you unless you're subscribed to that person and you have like the notification bell on that says like all. And then even then, sometimes you don't get the notification for them. So that would suck losing you guys because I do love having the conversations with you guys. So if I take a break, that is like a thing that could happen. But I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. I might put up a poll at that time for you guys to, you know, look at different topics and suggest different topics because it's so hard sometimes when I'm thinking of an idea or a topic because there's so much stuff like bouncing around up here. I am so good when someone asks me something directly. I'm like, oh yeah, perfect. Bada bing, bada boom, X, Y, and Z. But then when I'm by myself, like with like a pen and paper trying to list out ideas, I'm just kind of like, what even is witchcraft? Am I really a witch? What's the crystal? You know what I mean? I'm sure some of you guys can relate to that. Anyway, I feel so bad because I'm all over the place in this video. I'm in like such a great mood. I love talking about silly stuff. I'm sorry if it's like too high energy. I don't want to be draining for some people. So let me like take back any icky energy. And now you're filled with like, oh, what was like the ASMR? Oh, I don't have any like rings or bracelets. Just pretend. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go put on a whole bunch of them. But you're filled with good energy. All that good energy. My cat's freaking out in the background, so I gotta go. That's my customer service voice. That's as close as to my customer service voice as you guys are going to hear. Anyway, I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry. I'm not sorry for being myself and being in a good mood, but you know, sometimes you guys come here for something interesting or something entertaining, and you might be like, oh my gosh, she's so ADHD or so distracted today, I can't follow it. I'm sorry for that. But anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful evening, night, energy, space, no matter what time of day it is that it may be when you are watching this. And I really truly hope that good things happen to you. See you on Friday.